welcome to Genius 100's G100 Live. With your host, visionary, and CEO of Genius 100, Julie Toscan. And special guest, Heidi Kuhn. And now, from the comfort and safety of her own home, please welcome Julie Toscan.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to G100 Live. I'm Helen Hatsis, Chief Community Officer in for Julie Toscan. For those of you tuning in for the first time, thank you for joining us. G100, or G100 for short, started with a group of 100 visionaries that we curated from around the world. They are comprised of individuals from the arts, so artists to Nobel laureates and everything in between. And what binds them is that the mark that they've made in our world in their respective field. And these visionaries are the inspiration behind the community that we continue to build. G100 Live is a platform we utilize to not only showcase the G100 visionaries, but to also share the stories of some incredible individuals that we've met along the way. And today, we are honored to have one of those individuals on our show. She's doing some incredibly visionary work that has impacted communities and the livelihood of many people. Heidi Kuhn, the founder of Roots of Peace, has set forth on a mission in 1997 to transform mines to vines, replacing the scourge of landmines with sustainable agricultural farmland. And Heidi recently released a book titled Breaking Ground: From Landmines to Grapevines, One Woman's Mission to Heal the World, depicting the over 2 decades of work she has dedicated to this cause. And interviewing Heidi today is Ido Aharoni from his home in Jerusalem, Israel. Ido is a distinguished global professor for international relations at NYU, a member of International Advisory Council, APCO Worldwide. He is a 25-year veteran of Israel's Foreign Service, ending as the longest-served Israeli consul to New York. He is recognized as a renowned public diplomacy specialist and a co-founder and principal at Emerson Rigby, and he's also a global ambassador for Genius 100 Foundation. Please welcome Ido Aharoni to G100 Live. Hi, Ido. How are you today?
Very good. Greetings from Jerusalem. Great to be with you.
Thank you, Ido. And thank you so much for taking on the hosting role today. And thank you for introducing us to Heidi Kuhn. It was so lovely to meet her last fall in San Francisco, and she has a remarkable story to share. And I know you've known her for over 20 years, and I'm so excited that the conversation between the two of you is about to happen. So without further ado, over to you.
Thank you so much, Helen, for this very, very gracious introduction. I met Heidi many years ago. I consider her to be not only a long-standing friend of mine, a long-standing friend of the state of Israel, but also a person I look up to, a person who decided to change the world. And the best that we can hope for when we leave this world is to know that we made a difference. And Heidi Kuhn surely and certainly made a difference, a huge difference, which we are going to talk about. You mentioned her organization, Roots of Peace, and her program, Mines to Vines, replacing landmines with sustainable agricultural farmland. She received many awards and recognitions all over the world for her work. But let me begin, before we engage in the conversation with Heidi, let me begin by playing a little video about the amazing work that Heidi and her organization did in Israel. That's how we met many, many years ago. So please, let's watch this video together.
The humanitarian organization has made an historic mission to the Middle East to honor a little boy's request. That child lost a leg to a landmine in Israel, and his wish to free the world from landmines started a movement. It ended with Israelis and Palestinians working together in the fields of Bethlehem. ABC 7 News anchor Cheryl Jennings has the story.
This little boy doesn't realize just how dangerous this path is. He's taking a shortcut through an old minefield in his village in the fields of Bethlehem. This young boy, Daniel Yuval, started a campaign to get rid of landmines. He won the attention of a California mother who runs a nonprofit to remove landmines. What happened is making history. Israelis and Palestinians working together to remove old landmines, turning this deadly field into this, a land filled with opportunities. Mines killed nearly half a dozen children here and many adults. But the Marin County humanitarian organization Roots of Peace stepped in to get rid of the mines. They provided this video.
This is anti-personal mine. Those are parts which we took out from the minefield.
The founder of Roots of Peace, Heidi Kuhn, delicately negotiated a historic partnership between Israelis and Palestinians,
which allowed us, Roots of Peace, to be the first ever humanitarian demining organization in the Middle East, helping bring forth food security and jobs.
And as we remove these landmines from the earth, we pray that the children may walk safely and shepherds may tend to their sheep.
The villagers are extremely grateful to Heidi, a California mother of 4 who answered the call of young Daniel Yuval. His right leg was blown off by a landmine in Israel's Golan Heights in February 2010. He was playing in the snow with his brothers and sisters. They didn't know it was a minefield. He was only 11.
What did he say to you? He asked me, as a mother, if I could help him create a mine-free world.
How many years did it take you?
It took 3 years.
San Francisco Israeli Consul General Dr. Andy David provided immense support.
It's just to prove that Israelis and Palestinians can work together, can bring peace together.
Daniel and his family came with Heidi Kuhn to visit ABC7 just a few months after he convinced Israel's government to pass a bill to ban landmines that aren't needed for defense. Daniel partnered with Heidi and Nobel Peace Prize winner Jerry White in that effort. Jerry also lost a leg to a landmine near the same area as Daniel. The money for the project came from Napa Valley vintners Paul and Shirley Dean, who donated $500,000. Heidi flew between California and Israel more than half a dozen times. She met with top leaders, including Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, and religious leaders. She persuaded a retired Israeli army colonel and a Palestinian mother of 4 to team up for this project.
We look to see the Israeli children and Palestinian children playing in the lands without mines.
And Heidi met with the leader of the Catholic Church in Jerusalem, who gave her the first ever peace medal in the church's history to honor her life-saving work in the name of a young hero, young Daniel Yuval.
This little boy helped change the face not only of his nation, but across borders all over the world, and we are well on track to helping him achieve his dream for a mine-free world.
Cheryl Jennings, ABC 7 News.
Well, thank you so much for this wonderful video. Heidi, good to see you. Can you hear me?
Wonderful to see you, Ambassador Aharoni. Such an honor to be invited on this Genius 100 Visions. Thank you.
Yeah, well, we are very, very thankful to you for taking the time to tell us your story. You know, you really have done something incredible. Thanks to you, over 100,000 landmines were removed, and the land was redeemed basically and turned into something sustainable that is using agricultural purposes. Can you take us back to the early days of how this whole idea come about? What were the origins? Tell us the story.
Well, Ambassador, it was very humble beginnings. In the living room of my home where I am speaking, literally gathered about 100 friends and raised my glass in what was to become a prophetic toast. May the world go from mines to vines. And it happened 3 weeks after the tragic death of the late Princess Diana, who catapulted the issue of landmines to the forefront of the international agenda. She made the world recognize that landmines know no borders. They don't know the color of our hand, the faith in our heart, or the politics in our mind. We live in a world today where there's an estimated 60 million landmines silently poised in 60 countries. And as one mother of 4 children who were here 3 weeks after the late Princess Diana had tragically died in that crash in Paris with her dear friend, it was just really something that went forth turning blood into wine, killing fields into vineyards. And it was a beautiful, beautiful moment. It was a very deep moment. And what happened then was taking it out of the living room of our family home and into the greater world. I went to Napa Valley and met with Robert Mondavi, Mienko Grgic, Diane Disney Miller, Tor Kenward, and Eric Wente. And they joined me in Canada to witness the signing of the Ottawa Treaty to ban landmines, which happened only a few weeks later. So it's really Canada who really lit the torch with the signing of the ban to landmines. And from there, it just really was a lifelong mission, Ambassador Ito Haroni.
How did you build the organization?
Well, I built it really one penny at a time. It was a vision, and we really didn't have one penny to our name, just armed with a vision. And the dear friends in the Napa Valley recognized how hard it was to start something from nothing. Robert Mondavi, in 1976, there were 17 wineries in the Napa Valley. And Mienko Grgic had introduced a bottle of wine into the Paris tastings. And this is a photo of this wonderful little Croatian gentleman who's now 97 years young. And he was born in Croatia. And Mike went with me on the year 2000 to visit his homeland, where after the Balkan War, 1.2 million landmines riddled his beautiful vineyards from his childhood. So he set out on a quest with me to raise the funds to demine our first village, turning mines to vines in a place called Dragalic, Croatia, which was on the border of Bosnia-Herzegovina. And the funding from the wonderful vintners, Robert Mondavi, raised $30,000 the first night. And again, it was an idea with no proof of concept. But it was the vision of the Napa vintners who really stood by me. And that first vineyard, we were able to see the seeds of destruction caused by landmines converted into bountiful agricultural crops. And we knew from that first pilot project that peace was indeed possible from the ground up.
And this is a beautiful segue to our next video, which is about Afghanistan, where you really were able to have a tremendous impact on the economy. The agricultural export increased from 250 million in 2014 to 1.4 billion in 2020. And that's largely thanks to the fact that you basically made land available for agricultural development. I'd like to show a short video about what you were doing in Afghanistan to make that happen.
A Bay Area nonprofit group is helping to transform the economy of Afghanistan tonight.
ABC 7 News anchor Cheryl Jennings had the exclusive opportunity to see their work firsthand, and she is here to tell us more about that.
It's all very exciting. President Ashraf Ghani says that he wants Afghanistan to be an exporting machine and believes the San Rafael-based charity Roots of Peace is helping to provide the tools to be a game changer for his country with the help of U.S. aid.
It's a reborn love. People are re-engaging with their country.
Afghanistan's new president, Ashraf Ghani, met recently with Roots of Peace founders Heidi and Gary Kuhn and me to talk about moving his country's economy from aid to trade.
I want to thank Roots of Peace for their initiatives, and I'll be very encouraging of scaling up the effort.
Roots of Peace is eager to expand its work with farmers and traders so they can stand on their own. I saw their pilot project in 2005 during my first visit to Afghanistan, when Roots of Peace was removing landmines and helping starving farmers grow food for their families. Now, thanks to long-term funding from U.S. aid, a major transformation is underway to improve the agricultural economy. The new president told me that it is crucial for the world to help Afghanistan create jobs, because jobs can be a powerful weapon to fight the drug trade and terrorism.
The image of a number of small drug runners is not the image of the majority of the people. It's the type of threats that have congregated around our neighborhood, or threats to the entire system of government.
In spite of those threats, Afghanistan is a country on the move finally after decades of war.
It's present-day Kabul at night, the 5th fastest growing city in the world. That's progress. That's success. And that could only happen with a coalition of the security that is provided.
General John Campbell leads the NATO mission in Afghanistan. He talked with me at the military base in Kabul about the important contributions by Roots of Peace.
Their dedication, their passion, their energy for the Afghan people is pretty remarkable.
Roots of Peace clearly have shown that they're dedicated to development here, and they have some very impressive results.
Bill Hammock is head of the USAID mission in Afghanistan, the largest in the world.
They've been funding our programs and supporting our efforts. They've been a huge supporter of us, which is great. It's enabled us to do many good things in this country.
Hammock and his team met with the Kuhns in Afghanistan to talk about President Ghani's goal: drive the agricultural economy faster, link more farmers and more traders to international markets.
We've seen a shift now whereby farmers are actually making money, and there's a growing number of Afghan traders that are helping out.
The Roots of Peace team producing those impressive results includes experts in science and business.
We've gone from market demand to identifying the types of product that buyers want, and then working backwards and saying, this is a product that you should be growing, and this is how you should take care of that product.
Proper irrigation is important, thinning is important, fertilizer.
Ahmad Shah trains farmers on ways to grow the best grapes and pomegranates. He says it took time to convince the farmers to try new ideas.
They were fighting with us. Why you are disturbing our wines? This is from my mother, this is from my father.
We have taken farmers to international expositions, international markets, to meet with the buyers in those markets. They needed to understand the big picture.
We've gone from what are basically wholesale markets to directly selling to supermarket chains. Those aspects they would classify as being game-changing.
Millions of dollars of deals are starting to happen thanks to that partnership with USAID. And now President Ghani has jumped in and is already promoting Afghanistan's produce.
Without the sons and daughters of farmers believing that they can be presidents, ministers, entrepreneurs, we will not have a prosperous country.
Okay, this is, thank you so much for this video. Heidi, you worked in some of the most dangerous places in the world. Was there a time you felt that you were in physical, personal danger? Was there a time you were thinking, oh, this is too much for me, I can't take it anymore?
Well, Ambassador, to be quite honest, yes, there were many times where you wondered how you can take a dream of turning mines to vines out of the living room of your home and onto the world stage. There were many obstacles, but I really was armed with faith amidst fear and knowing that it takes only 8 pounds to detonate a landmine, which is the average weight of a newborn child. And as a mother of 4 children, I felt that responsibility to reach out to the children of the world who deserve a life where they can kick a soccer ball out of bounds and not worry about losing a life or a limb to a landmine that was planted long before they were born. And so you've recently just seen the video of Afghanistan, where we expanded our model from Croatia, from turning mines to grapevines and a fine bottle of wine, but not everybody in the world drinks wine. And shortly after the September 11th attacks on the United States, we recognized that the deserving, innocent people of Afghanistan deserved a lifestyle. And Afghanistan is a country which is 80% dependent upon agribusiness. And if that country is to lift itself up, it must be lifted up through the fruits of the earth, the economics of peace, the business of peace. And conversely, Afghanistan is the most heavily mined country in the world. So it seemed quite fitting to turn mines into vines. In a country that if I were to dig a hole from California, I would end up in Afghanistan. It was literally the other side of the world. And many, many people told me, please give it up. You can't possibly, as one Marin County mother, make a difference in Afghanistan. You'll go home and take care of your children, give up this ridiculous dream. And those were just fighting words for me. I believed so much in what I was doing. And it was just always, as my wise grandmother would always teach me, coincidence is a miracle in which God prefers to remain anonymous. And there were people along the way who just appeared to be able to help me along the journey. And in Afghanistan, we went up to the University of California at Davis, which is one of the finest agricultural schools in the country, and approached the chancellor there and explained the situation that there were 70 varietals of grapes that were indigenous to Afghanistan. And as we turn mines to vines, it would be the fresh grape, the juicy nectar of the grapes and raisins for export, with due respect to the Muslim culture, which does not drink wine. But from mines to vines, we went in there initially in 2002, and with funding from USAID, began our first program to introduce the trellis grapevines. You prune the vine, you double the yield. And when my husband Gary and I went over there, again, shortly after 9/11, trying to earn the trust of traditional tribal elders with long beards, and here we were, two Americans coming in with this idea. They gave us a demonstration plot, and the first year, they cut the wooden post down, which is the trellis vines that we use, which are so popular in the Napa Valley. And we said, why did you not listen to us? And it was then that I learned my really first American lesson to listen, because the Afghans had cut the wooden trellis post down. They said, Mrs. Kuhn, with due respect, it was the coldest winter on record. If we didn't cut the wood and burn it for fires to keep our families warm and to feed them warm food that our wives were cooking, we wouldn't be here. So what Roots of Peace did with funding from USAID, we introduced the cement trellis posts. And now this has really revitalized the nation. And the fresh grapes are now being sold to new markets in India, Pakistan, Delhi, and Dubai. And it's such an important time in 2020 that we, respect the seeds we have in common rather than those which separate us. We've seen what's happening around the world with COVID-19 and the racial riots and tensions. But I think landmines is something that brings us all down to something, again, the seeds we have in common. And in a world where there's 70 million landmines silently poised in 70 countries, we have since brought that down to 60 million, but through the efforts of many. But people are shelter in place on a consistent basis. They cannot go outside to kick a soccer ball or chase a butterfly or pick flowers in a field for the fear of landmines beneath our feet. So once we find a cure for the virus of COVID-19, I hope the world can come together and find a cure for the eradication of landmines so that the viable seeds of agriculture, peace through agriculture, as my dear friend Ambassador Quinn has always stated to me, is able to flourish. Now, Ambassador, to answer your question quite seriously, that defining moment when I did question whether it was right to proceed with Roots of Peace or not was March 28th, 2014. And that's when, again, in the living room of our family home, I received the worst phone call of my life. And it was a phone call that Roots of Peace is under attack. The Taliban has attacked Roots of Peace. And it was in the same home where I stayed just only weeks before with our wonderful staff. And it was a suicide bomb that went off, targeting 25 kindergartners who were in school adjacent to our facility. And it was a 4.5-hour gun battle. Very sadly, it's the first time we've ever been featured in New York Times, Washington Post, but it was because of this very tragic suicide attack on our compound. And it was a defining moment for me to determine maybe it's just gotten too tough. I can't do this. I've got to give up. And it was just at that point our first grandson was born, and I looked into the eyes of that dear grandchild of ours, and I just thought of the words of Kennedy from my youth: "To whom much has been given, much is expected." And I doubled down, and through that, and with additional funding from USAID for our CHAMP program, which is the acronym for Commercial Horticultural Agricultural Marketing Program, we took agricultural exports from $250 million in 2014 up to $1.4 billion in agricultural exports. And these beautiful fresh fruits are going to the new markets. I've had the honor and privilege of bringing our Afghan traders from Kabul to Dubai for Gulf Food this past February 2020, and to see the hope in a harvest of hope where people are able to provide alternative agricultural crops to poppies and provide exports to new markets. This is how we plant the roots of peace, and it transcends borders, as you well know, in serving in your incredible role when I met you as the Consul General of Israel based in New York City.
Now, what other countries have you been to?
Well, we planted rice in Cambodia, grapes in Afghanistan, orchards in Croatia, wheat in Iraq, and in Vietnam. When I was a young girl growing up, on a black and white television, we would watch the what was called a body count in the Vietnam War, and it made me very, very sad. I asked my mother what I could do to stop this sadness of war that I was watching in the 1960s on a black and white television. And she told me, get an education, Heidi, do something for peace. So in the 70s, I attended University of California at Berkeley. It was the time of the peace movement. Peace and love were the words that echoed around the world. But there is no peace and love when we leave remnants of war left behind from wars long ago. So we went into Vietnam from there, and training the farmers.
that gives us a wonderful opportunity to watch another video of your incredible work in Vietnam. Let's watch that video.
Dr. Ben, so they're going all out.
In the Quang Tri province in North Vietnam, Americans and Vietnamese break bread together, giving thanks for the land and its bountiful crops. There is no hatred or animosity in the people, only a shared vision to free the war-torn soils of Vietnam from landmines, making it safe for children to play and farmers to prosper.
My dream, the farmers in Quang Tri have a better life.
To live in a world where there's an estimated 70 million landmines in 70 countries, I believe, as one mother, it's a moral responsibility so that the children and the future generations may walk in peace.
It's the story of country helping country, of farmers helping farmers, and the collaboration needed to remove the remnants of war and plant the roots of peace. In the spirit of the holidays, please join us to turn minefields into prosperous farmland. By restoring the land's economic viability, we strengthen community values and restore a sense of peace.
Heidi, I'm holding here a copy of your book, Breaking Ground, which you so generously and graciously sent me. It arrived a few days ago, and so I didn't have a chance to read the whole thing. I just went through it. I obviously was very impressed with the depth and the scope. Tell me something. I'm very curious, and I'm sure that our listeners and viewers are very curious. Was there a particular person who inspired you to do all of this? When you wrote the book, who did you have in mind?
Mm-hmm. I think it's the children would be my answer. It's the innocent children and the innocent footsteps that are maimed and killed due to landmines. And Ambassador Haroni, we have a dear friend in common, and that's Daniel Yuval. And that little boy on February 6, 2010, went with his family, his mother, Tali, and father, Guy, and 4 other siblings to the Golan Heights. They drove from Ramat HaSharon, and they were playing in a rare snowball fight, laughing and giggling amidst the beautiful virgin white snow. And Daniel stepped on a landmine. And at age 10, he really called the world to his bedside to turn mines to vines all over the world. Today, you can see this little photo of Daniel messing around with my dear friend Jerry White, who also stepped on a landmine in the Golan. And he was just teaching Daniel what it was like to live a life without a limb. And Daniel grew up extremely brave, extremely proud, and has just gotten out of the Israeli army and committed deeply. I spoke with him earlier this week, and I believe he's even on the line with us, committed more than ever to prevent the innocent footsteps of children all over the world from stepping on landmines. So yes, Ambassador, it was children, and they deserve it better.
I remember Daniel and his family very well. I think it was exactly 10 years ago when we hosted a reception in Manhattan for Roots of Peace, and Daniel was there with his family. I remember it very vividly, and I still have the picture somewhere in my computer. Now, there's been a lot of public talk about the need to put in place some sort of an internationally recognized treaty like the Mine Ban Treaty that will basically make it clear that we are all in this together, right? That we have a collective mission here to make the world landmine free by 2025. Mm-hmm. What do you think, as an expert on this issue, what do you think needs to happen in order for the world to achieve this goal? And bear in mind that COVID-19, with all the pain and the misery that it brought about, also creates an opportunity for more collaborative diplomacy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Ambassador, I think this is a moment in history. And I think really what we need is 2020 vision. We're through halfway through the year 2020. And I think we have within our midst the ability to eradicate landmines. It's going to take money. It's going to take awareness, and it's going to take, wonderful forums like G100, who incidentally is based in Canada. The Ottawa Treaty was signed in December 1997, where, over 130 nations signed the ban to landmines. Over 160 have to date, and Roots of Peace is a humanitarian organization, and we were very honored to be invited to Kensington Palace on UN Landmine Awareness Day on April 4th, 2017 by MAG, which is a demining group. And we had the honor of meeting Princess Diana's son, Prince Harry. And Prince Harry called forth a mine-free world by the year 2025. I truly believe, as a mother in my heart, that with consciousness that we have the ability to eradicate these seeds of hatred, not only from our soil, but from our hearts and from our minds. We must demine the hatred, and we must replant it with the seeds of love and kindness, and the fruit of the vine and the work of human hands. It is shown in a beautiful way by a beautiful flower that will grow on a former minefield. and the economics of peace that can flourish. This is about business. This isn't a, airy-fairy thing from the 1960s and 70s. Peace is the most important thing that we can be drilling down to today. And a tangible example of that, Ambassador, is this bottle of Morton & Bassett black pepper. And you can see on the back, the Roots of Peace logo. This is, see, I'm not really doing this correctly. There's our logo, the grapevine and dove of peace. And the owner of Morton & Bassett is a gentleman by the name of Morton Gotthealth, who fought in the Vietnam War. And he's now 85 years young. And every single bottle of black pepper that is being sold on shelves in the United States is from a former minefield. This is from mines to pepper vines. And it's a percentage of the proceeds will go back to Roots of Peace to help us to continue to do our business. So we're working with the California Vintners, the spice companies, funding from USAID, funding from the Skoll Foundation, who gave us the Skoll Award for Social Entrepreneurship in 2006. And this type of funding allows us to turn our ideas into reality. And so, Ambassador, I think if I have a dream, it would be to finish this year, 2020, with you in the Holy Land, and with Daniel's leadership, identify another place in the Golan where we can turn those mines into a fine bottle of wine, or perhaps fresh grapes and raisins, so that we're respectful to all cultures. This is a time when we must raise our awareness. And as I said, regardless of the color of our hand, the politics in our mind, a seed will grow today as it has for thousands of years. And Tikkun Olam is the beautiful name that you taught me to heal the earth. And that is my commitment from all the days of my life.
And speaking of that task to heal the world, we have many people on this call. Many of them are very passionate about what you're describing. And Genius 100, in general, is a platform for the promotion of goodness, right? So when people have an idea, Genius 100 is there to make it happen. What can people do in order to get involved?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, first of all, it's always about the pennies for peace. And I think to go on our website, rootsofpeace.org, and become a member, ask for our newsletter, and contribute. Pennies, nickels, dimes, and paper pennies, because it costs money. It's about $3 to put in a landmine and about $1,000 to take out. And today I have over 250 Afghan employees that we are coordinating an incredible harvest of hope from the soils of Afghanistan through the borders of Pakistan, and bringing those fruits to market. So your investment in Roots of Peace helps us build orchards and trees on former war-torn lands, and provide the economics of peace for families and communities to thrive. So
wonderful. This is wonderful.
And also, you may purchase my book, Breaking Ground, and a percentage of the proceeds, as stated, will go back towards reclaiming the land, making it viable for the bounty of agriculture to grow, and that creates sustainable peace on former battlefields.
Wonderful, and I think we are in the perfect point in the program where we can turn to our guests and ask them to share with us their questions and maybe their thoughts. And we have a tradition here that the first question always comes from the previous interviewee with our Genius 100 platform. And I'm being told that question was just canceled. So I will turn to Helen and ask Helen to moderate the Q&A session.
Sure. Thank you, Io. So Heidi, we have a question where people are asking how they can get involved. So I know when we spoke earlier, you mentioned that, when people purchase the book, proceeds will go towards demining, so they can become a deminer that way. But somebody else here has asked, is it possible to volunteer at one of the farms? And if you can elaborate on that.
Yes. Well, we would love to have volunteers, again, because of COVID-19. Movement right now is restricted. But to volunteer in your, wherever you're calling from, your whatever country, we need to create satellite presence for roots of peace, many roots to be planted around the world. And I would welcome any volunteers in that capacity, so we could spread this out to over 190 countries. 60 million landmines is 1/3 of our planet. And to create advocacy through volunteers and networks, I would be only so happy to help coordinate.
Perfect. And the other questions, they've already actually been answered in the program. We had 5 questions in total, but they've all been touched upon. Specifically, people were really curious about your affiliation with Prince Harry. So thank you for addressing that.
And thank you. And you can see, I'm sure go online and see his passionate and compelling statement that he made on April 4th, 2017, calling forth a mine-free world. And I think if we can get behind this young man's vision and help him turn it into reality on behalf of his mother, Princess Diana, who really lit the torch for the eradication of landmines worldwide, certainly was my inspiration, and it's full circle how we can take this forth. So with G100 Visions, I'm really looking forward to this partnership. I think we can approach various wineries, perhaps even in Israel, to get behind us, L'chaim, various ways to say cheers throughout the world. Cheers to a mine-free world. And corporations, again, just like the innovative models of Morton and Bassett Spice, can contribute, doing well as doing good.
All right, terrific. I know that that we are very limited in time. I wish we could have you for more. But if you could outline for us, where would you like to see Roots for Peace maybe 10 years from now?
Well, I have a unique business model, Ambassador. I would like to put myself out of business. I want to see a world where there are no more landmines, and that where children can have picnics on former war-torn lands. And we can look back at this pivotal year of 2020 and look back and see it as a defining moment when the world came together to bridge borders and to understand the humanity, the seeds we have in common, as opposed to those which separate us. So with social media and handles, please hashtag Roots of Peace, hashtag Breaking Ground. Push it out on all your social media channels, Twitter, Instagram, and let's get this party going. Let's get something unified for peace. I think the world is thirsty. They're hungry for it, but we need to be the elders, the leaders who shine the light for future generations, to walk an earth, to shepherd, to lead in a world without landmines. We have such viable food security opportunities. And again, dear friends of mine who joined me at the very beginning of this year to detonate a landmine, Ambassador Kenneth Quinn, President Emeritus of the World Food Prize, to take that thumb and put it and hear that boom, to know one more landmine has been eradicated and one more child's footstep is able to play on a former war-torn land. That is grounded peace to me.
Amazing, incredible. Well, thank you so much for inspiring us. Thank you for sharing with us your thoughts. And thank you for everything that you're doing for humanity. As I said in my opening remarks, very few people can say that they were really able to change something so profound and so dramatic, and you have. You've done that very successfully, exceedingly well, and we are all indebted to you for all the great work that you've done. And I would like to invite you to join us in our future programming with the Genius 100 community, which is a curated community of people that simply want to do good, people that simply want to promote good deeds and to get themselves involved in projects like yourself, like your project and your initiatives. So on this happy note, I'd like to thank you and to thank our participants, and also would like to let them know that this is going to be available on video on YouTube and on Facebook and other Genius 100 social media platforms. And thank you for your time. And I hope to see you right here in the Holy Land with Daniel and his family very, very soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate it so much to you and your colleagues. I look forward to that.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Shalom.